All right. Who's excited for some data conversation? All right, everybody. Armen Adjemian, founder CEO of DISQO. I'm excited to talk about data analytics. I realize that we're going to go pretty heavy into some complex topics potentially, or we'll keep it light. We'll see. But as we just heard, we're here with Mike Bregman. Mike has spent the last 2 decades dealing with data. Is that right?
Yeah.
Roughly
not too many gray hairs.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is, Mike, you were probably working on things 20 years ago, and it took you like 3 months to kind of put formulas together and crank stuff out, and now you can do that in like 30 seconds.
Well, with AI, anything's possible.
That's right. So before we get started, I'm going to just lighten up the room a little bit. We're going to get to know Mike. I'm going to ask like 5 rapid-fire questions. Mike, just pick.
I haven't heard these before.
Yeah. So this is we'll keep it kosher a little bit. So just you have to pick one of the answers. Okay. So here we go. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Any day.
Mac or PC?
PC.
PC. That's what I figured. You're data guy.
Too much creativity.
Too much, right? Early bird or night owl?
Early.
All right. Karaoke or dance battle?
I am terrible at karaoke. I did it in Cannes. Amanda was there. No one wants to see that ever again.
So dance battle?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Miming.
And then last, Yoda or Darth Vader?
Oh, Yoda, any day.
All right. Now that we've profiled Mike, right? So this is very interesting. Somebody's going to come up with. They're going to put these answers in some LLM model and come up with a
There's
very
going to be an AI
deep profile.
personality that comes out of this.
All right. Mike, so some of the people in the audience may not know you. Chief Activation Officer at Havas. Can you talk about what that means? What responsibilities sit with you and the team? And what does Chief Activation Officer do?
Yeah, so one of our big missions within Havas was to be more agile, to be more data-driven, and use technology in virtually everything that we do. Right, the industry has grown more and more complex. There's no shortage of technology components and different systems and things you need to link. But when we evaluated how we go to market, there was still a lot of traditional investment. There was a lot of deals where we would give money to a vendor or a partner. We would find that we would get some returns. We would do some brand measurements or sales measurement, and that was it. We found that just wasn't enough. So we had to completely rethink how we go to market. We needed to take a lot of those investment opportunities, a lot of our partnerships, change the dynamics of the deal, make things a lot more rapid fire, use data as a way to guide some of the optimization decisions. And that could be simply how we work with different platforms, different programmatic partners, different social partners. But it's using planning as a more agile way to go to market. So when we think about activation, it's a principle. It's how the teams need to collaborate. It's different pod structures that we set up. So when we set up a team, just like any agency when they go to market, you have someone from strategy, you have someone from intelligence, someone from an insights function, someone from a data function, someone from an investment function, but they collaborate on a day-to-day basis. And every day they go into a platform, they look at their performance, and they think and they brainstorm opportunities to change up some of the media mix, opportunities to change up the creative, ways to think about new audiences, but they do that in a much faster turnaround. So activation, my job is to bring those teams together and make sure that they really challenge and think through the conventions of how we work with clients.
Given, I think, what you're driving at Havas, and given how the role of the media agencies are changing in general with the increase of just capabilities across the board, what do you think? Slightly provocative question. As brands think about potentially in-housing capabilities, how does the role of the agency change? What is that unique kind of value that you bring to brands that otherwise would not be possible for them?
Yeah, I think the million-dollar question you're probably trying to get to is, do agencies still have a role in this modern world of ours? And I wholeheartedly believe the answer is yes. There's no other option. Agencies need to work with clients as a way to challenge them, as a way to set new standards, as a way to think about ways to elevate their business models. Agencies have gone through a lot of reinventions. There's traditional TV buying that became very heavy digital. These days, there's a lot of streaming. I mean, we run an AI panel for clients virtually every week. There's always questions about what's the latest use case and how do you embrace change and how do you adapt to change. But I think agencies need to change the fold of how they spend time with clients. And sometimes that is a media buying, media investment use case. But more often than not, it's thinking about their business dynamics. Do they have the right products in market? Do they have the right audience strategy? Do they have the right brand identity? Are they understanding the voice of the customer? What's the right type of customer sentiment? So it's all sorts of different touch points that agencies need to pick up. Agencies are very quickly moving out of media-only responsibilities. Most of the RFPs that we get these days are MarTech and data. It's how do you think about the components of a different data stack? How do you think about getting the right data layers in? It's not just a customer anymore. A customer is quite complex. They're on a journey. There's endless touch points. There's different site experiences. There's different apps, different ways to measure brand, right? There's different ways to conduct surveys. Even small panels are now big data panels. So agencies need to find a role that is comprehensively looking at the dynamics of a client's business. And I think we're getting there. We're setting up consulting arms. So at Havas, we set up a group called CSA last year. It focused on science, technology, and standard business consulting. We set up a platform, Amanda gave an nod to it earlier, called Converged. Converge is all about working as an ecosystem, a UN of sorts, bringing different data partners together. So agencies need to be a magnet for some of this creativity and some of the thinking. Hopefully we're delivering that to our clients that are here.
Mike, you talked about you're doing weekly AI sessions for your clients. Can you go a little bit deeper? What do your clients want to know? What are the set of capabilities you're discussing with them that exist today that didn't maybe a year ago? And then how are you internally also at Havas kind of thinking about what's your philosophy about how do you incorporate new tools because it's changing just so fast? And how do you kind of make this available to your teams and ensure that you're on top of the game?
So we conduct surveys regularly in partnership with Gartner and Forrester. Some of the stats that we find are when you poll CMOs, 80+% are doing AI experiments now, in the moment. Huge statistic. Most CMOs have it top of mind. There's some sort of AI-like object that exists within their client's four walls, or they're doing it on behalf of partners or agencies, but they're aware of some AI testing. When you actually put their feet to the fire and you ask them how many of them are going to continue into next year, it's only about a third. And when you ask them in 2030, how many of them are going to have the tests up and running that are scaled, it's only about 10%. So the stats drop off pretty quickly, and where I think clients are trying to figure out the real value of these investments is how do you evaluate the equation? How much do you spend? How many people do you need? What's the right resource model? How do you figure out the way to plug that into existing business operations, current campaigns, current products, and then how do you get a long-term result out of it? It's not an easy equation. So most of these workshops that we conduct, we go through the use cases. Usually there's a creative use case. There's a lot of great partners, like Adobe is a partner that we work with very closely. There's a lot of Gen AI creativity that's out there. Instead of, you talked about me functioning faster, creatives function a lot faster these days too. To produce 100 different iterations with different types of messaging, different types of pictures and content. It used to take weeks, if not months. Now it could be a matter of days or hours. So creativity is definitely one. Optimization is one that we hear all the time. Just how do the platforms themselves optimize against audiences, content, creative messaging? How do you bid in smarter ways? And then the last one that we spend a lot of time on as an agency is productivity. How do you work smarter, not harder? How do you increase the efficiency of the overall team? How do you reduce mundane tasks, manual tasks? Data cleanup is something that we still spend a lot of time on. We're trying to reduce very quickly. There's been a lot of offshore models that agencies have invested in. Don't solve the problem in the US, solve it somewhere else. That's not enough these days. We have to find platforms that help our teams to function much smarter. And that could be capturing bugs. It could be going through different pipes, making sure they're connected. Tags are firing. Site data is working. Content is what it should be in pharma, healthcare, financial services. Because of all the regulation, you have to make sure that the creative and the promise and the ad copy is exactly right for the product. AI can capture issues with that. So just having some of those smart robots, robotic processes set up on the back end can exponentially improve operations.
Would you say that a lot of the use cases are around efficiency versus efficiency and productivity versus creating additional value or higher effectiveness?
I think there's a scale. There's the efficiency gains by bringing down costs of some of the operations. If it used to take 10 people a certain amount of time to do something, it could take one person plus a lot of robots. There's an investment that goes in, and there's a return on that efficiency. But at the same time, if you can multiply creativity for clients, if you can create net new ideas, net new insights, just think about a dashboard. Clients are going in, and there's endless data points. There's a lot of ones and zeros. There's a lot of bar charts and tables. It's amazing that we produce all of those results, and our teams are busy crunching those numbers. But what % of that actual real estate on the dashboard is viewed? If there was an AI component, we're actually building these right now in real time, where you could query what is the best performing audience, how do I think about ranking all the creative I have in market? It's a much faster way to gather insights. So AI-driven intelligence, I think, is the next wave of efficiency gain. And if you can then put some of that to market, redesigning the creative, rethinking the audience, rethinking the dynamics of the channels that we buy, how we work with partners, that's a big opportunity.
Yeah, I think just across the board, when you see a lot of the innovation that's coming out, it's really the cases to drive productivity improvement are kind of self-evident. I think we're still figuring out across the board, how do you create really more value? How do you really...
Well, let me ask you, how are you guys thinking about innovation as a data-led, innovative company in the technology space? What are you guys thinking about?
Yeah, I think for us, so we are, our DNA as a company is, we've always been product and tech first. Roughly about 1/3 to 1/4 of our, 1/3 of our team is engineering product. So we've really allowed and embraced and actually advocated for every team to use AI in some way or form. I think what's interesting is you're definitely seeing in the MarTech world, you're seeing a tremendous amount of, you talked about, creative will be disrupted, right? It will transform, the tools will get better, the iterations will get better. I think what we're working on is really how to unlock speed. The biggest challenge that I think I see in meetings and when we're in a room and you're in that middle of a decision and there's 3 more questions you have and you don't have access to the data at your fingertips. So what happens is action items, next steps, 1 more meeting 2 weeks later. I think we're working on through our tools to unlock the ability for any client to access any data really quickly, to move faster. So I think fundamentally, AI is going to unlock speed in different ways that haven't been possible before, and giving users of any technology the ability to just ask a question or receive an answer on the spot is going to just move things faster, right? That's what we're seeing. Mike, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So if we think about a lot of brands, most brands have traditionally had silos between brand building teams and performance teams. Some of the trends we're seeing organizations try to break up these walls internally and even consolidate. And this is happening both internally in organizations and also happening in how it's also impacting how they work with agencies. So why, 2 questions for you. Why do you think this is happening? Why is it important for organizations to really connect those 2 parts of the marketing team together? And why do you think it's really hard to do?
Yeah, I think there's a measurement challenge that's created some silos in how some clients go to market. Performance media has historically been the easiest to measure. If you run a search campaign, you can look at clicks. If you run a programmatic campaign, you can look at your engagements, you can look at your CPMs, you can track how to get those campaigns to function harder, which is great. You should optimize as much as possible. Like I said, AI technology and new platforms and new data streams are allowing us to be a lot smarter in how we use technology for media. On the brand side, creativity has a much longer turnaround. So there's several metrics that have been popular. Using surveys, you can measure lifts in awareness, you can look at lifts in consideration. Oftentimes those are done, and you know this all too well, so I'm preaching to the choir here. When you do those studies, you measure the entire brand activity. I think partnering with DISQO, what we've been able to do is to track that consumer-specific impact of the content. If you have different creative treatments, if you have different audiences, you can actually measure the lift through some of this follow-up surveys to consideration and purchase intent, which is really critical to monitoring the effect of upper funnel and mid-funnel content. What I think the next step is, and there's what we like to think of as the golden triangle right now. You've got marketing mix modeling, which is having a rebirth. It's having a heyday. Traditional econometric techniques, they used to take months to run. If you're familiar with marketing mix modeling, the hardest part was waiting 3 months to get your ROI results with the CMO, CFO banging on your door, trying to figure out what the TV ROIs are. Those models can now run in days. So the iterative process of adding one variable at a time to this complex math equation is now a much faster cycle to get the data out. Then you have attribution modeling. Cookies aren't going away, hooray, or at least going away a little bit slower. We're able to run attribution models at scale these days. I think the walled gardens are starting to break down. So the combination of upper funnel measurement techniques like marketing mix that combine performance and brand media. You have attribution models that can now look at performance across lots of different partners, lots of different channels and tactics. And then you have the other richer corner, and I think it's also having a boom right now, which is experimentation. I think we're having an experimentation renaissance right now because you can go into Snap and Meta and Google and you can run a lot of these, not just A to B tests, but it's really A to Z.
A to Z, right.
And you can run infinite combinations of different, once again, creative audience content. You can use Gen AI as a way to create new content. So through that golden triangle, you can actually get really quick results that combine parts of what used to be this unknown bucket of brand building, where you assume you're taking the top of the funnel, driving people to the middle traditional triangle. I'm sure everyone in the room is familiar with it. You're able to fill it up, and you're able to get it to be, more of a V shape versus a T shape. Now, with some of these new techniques, you can do that at a much faster clip, much more agility, much more data rich.
And if you think about all the models, so Havas builds these models for your clients. How complex is it to really connect these upper funnel metrics to performance? What's the type of data you need? How do you think about lag time? How do you understand that can you understand that at the overall kind of tactic level? Right? Or are you looking at brand to performance at a more holistic level, at a channel level, or whatnot?
So we're gonna geek out a little bit. Hopefully, you guys like some of the math we're gonna talk about here. This is the technical part of the conversation. I think when you do a lot of these brand follow-up surveys, consumers give a response to what they might expect in the future. So you're getting a little bit of a soft read on how things are happening. You're obviously creating a control group, which isn't exposed to the advertising, and a test group. You're showing them a creative. You're trying to test out how does this picture of a shoe or a retailer or any product, how does it change their dynamic of how they're actually going to shop within that category or for that brand. It takes time to get that data to come in. If you send them the survey within the hour, chances are there's some people that have a fat finger, that are impulsive, that are going to be triggered. But chances are a week later or a month later, even 3 months later, you start getting cumulative effects. So your question about lag time is super interesting because if you have one advertisement, a one frequency, you're not going to get the full impact of that advertising. You might need 5, 10, 15, 20 treatments across lots of different channels. And we've actually done studies where if we have just one channel's impact, you get a certain amount of brand equity lift from the DISQO studies. If you do 2 treatments or even 3 or 4 different channel treatments, touch points, you start getting incremental effects, and it's almost exponential. So doing 4 channel treatments, 4 channel touch points, you might get 30% incremental lift on that campaign. And that could happen over the course of months afterwards. So you need time in order for it to sink in order to get that long-term cumulative effect of advertising. But through brand efforts, it does build. It just needs time and a little bit of patience.
Yeah, what's challenging, I think, is with survey-based data, you're always measuring a point in time versus where you're using any kind of performance data, you're measuring longitudinally across time. And you want to see the impact of how these upper funnel metrics drive this down funnel performance. When you do the measurement, how easy is it then to operationalize that data into actually improving the effectiveness of the decisions you make at the tactic level or even at the campaign-to-campaign level?
Yeah, for most of our clients, brand equity lifts are great. They love seeing them, but what they really want to see is sales.
Right.
They want to see e-commerce conversion. So the question that we always get is, if my brand equity lift is up 5% in these studies, what does that mean for my ROI? Is my ROI also 5% up? Probably not.
Most likely not.
Most likely not. Most likely it's not exactly 5%. It's different. So you need to find ways to correlate some of these upper funnel activities to sales conversion type metrics. And that could be a conversion funnel in and of itself. You get someone to consider the category or the brand. You then get someone to visit a website, get them to open a basket, get them to visit the retail location, and then what percent of those people actually buy the product. So there's going to be a drop-off effect. The percent lift that we get, you need to combine some of these studies together. So if you're doing what we call a brand equity model, or BEM, those brand equity models measure the impact of media onto lifts in brand equity scores. You then need to nest it with a marketing mix model. So combining some of the metrics that you would have in a traditional sales-based model with some of these new metrics from brand research, you can actually create synergies that you can measure. So 5% might equal 3% in sales.
Do you are you, in some cases, you just don't have sales data, right? Depending on the category or whatnot,
Depends on how hard we beg the clients. I mean, if there's some CMOs here, definitely give as much of your data as possible over to agencies and over to partners, because you have to measure it.
You have to measure it. When you don't have sales data, have you been able to figure out what other proxies you can use? And do you think clients know what, for example, what a site visit or what a search of their brand actually means in a dollar value for themselves?
It's a good question. A lot of times the website is the richest treasure trove of data. Some combination of website metrics can correlate to sales. It's a bit of investigative reporting to figure out it depends on the industry. Like, let's take auto as an example. If you're building a car on an OEM's website, chances are you have a high intention of going to the dealer, test driving, and ultimately buying it. But what's the right combination of car building components? Maybe if you choose a color, maybe if you select the type of tire, you're then a much more heavy intender. So you have to figure out what that right combination of elements is from the website data. So working with a Google Analytics or an Adobe Analytics, you can actually pull all of that data out. You can look at the right combination, structure it in a way where you get that right read on who the consumers are, the right signals of how they're spending time on a website. I mean, back in the day, it was a website visit. You drive them to a landing page, they land, they're a high opportunity customer. That's not exactly right. They have to spend a certain amount of time, click on a certain amount of buttons, get a certain read on how the product works. And auto is one category, like healthcare is another one. That takes a lot more research. Financial services is another one where you have to investigate. Is this the right type of fund? Is it a place where I want to put my 401k? Is it a place that I trust? Is it giving me some inspiration for the late stage of my life? You have to get an understanding of how consumers journey through all the different touch points. But if you get enough of those signals, in theory, yes, it could be a good corollary to sales.
And I think what you're saying is also that it's wildly different from category to category, from brand to brand. I think so. We sit on a lot of consumer journey data. I remember us looking at the automotive industry. Something like 15 to 20% of all consumers at some point in time are looking at an auto site. But we also know that the sales cycles for auto are pretty long, right? But you're always in the market. You're always, right? There's some commercial that's really making you want to go and build that car. And those consumer habits, I think, are very different from category to category. Speaking of that, I think the other thing that's happening right now is consumer journeys. If we think about how consumer journeys, how all of us go out there and find things, right? When we have an interest or when we're in that place of purchase, we go and search. All of that is changing. As far as I think, I'm sure, what % of people here use ChatGPT instead of search now in some capacity? Very good. Okay.
It's a lot.
It's. If we were sitting here probably a year from now, we'll probably see a lot more hands. So the consumer journey is going to dramatically change. How do you think that affects media strategy? As you think about search dramatically changing, as you think about how we discover products, as tools, I think that new iOS systems are going to have collaboration between apps, meaning your one app can be tracking your health habits and then ordering something for you when you're out of stock. How do you think all of those things impact the media strategy?
Well, I think from a media planner standpoint, if I put my media planner hat on, there's a lot more partners to work with, which is exciting time. There's a lot more opportunities to search. There still is the Google juggernaut that's there, but their share of market is declining. There's other ways to now find relevant information about the products you're interested in, which is good that there's more platforms, there's more opportunities to search. Tying all of those together into an integrated strategy is getting a little bit harder because you need to identify a role for each of those partners. TikTok search is quite popular. How do you link TikTok search intention data with Google search data? They're a little bit separate. So what's the right combination to pull things together? We tend to think of it as different types of microcultures or micro trends. So you think about product news and how consumers are talking about different net new ideas that are out there, new types of fashion, new types of beauty products, or even new types of investing strategies. There's conversations out there that are happening. There's different types of search patterns that you can spot. So you need to pull all of those together in almost like an aggregation tool. And that aggregation tool, because there's billions of rows of data, billions of different social mentions, a human can't go through it. So you need AI as a way to spot the different categories of trends. So it's been happening for a while. There's social listening data, there's social listening tools. Now with search data, now propagating the industry, and like you said, being more fragmented, you need a way to hone in on the real trends, spotting that next big thing to talk about, the next thing to design a creative around to get customers more interested. So it's a pretty exciting time for media because there's so many entrepreneurs like yourself that are creating new companies, new ideas, finding ways to bring that together and use it for insights. That's our challenge that we have to solve.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, over the next couple of years, we're going to have to use various different new tools and get new signals to really figure it all out. I'll ask one more question, and maybe you can open it up to the crowd to see if there's any questions out there. Simply one use case that, what can you do today using tools that are available that you couldn't do a year ago using AI?
Well, I mean, the fact that you can take a conversation, let's just say a 1-hour meeting, and you can have Microsoft as a partner where the robot, the AI, is listening on that conversation, and the conversation go all over the place. Right? You have a business meeting, it's an hour, there's lots of different topics. Even though there's an agenda and a structure, it could lean a lot of different ways. And as soon as it's done, Copilot instantly spits out a summary. I think that's just phenomenal. You used to have to rely on a project manager or an analyst or someone on the team to go in and notate, make sure that all of the follow-ups are done. Now you have, here's a summary of the conversation, here are the key discussion points, here's the things that weren't resolved, here are the next steps, Mike needs to go in and do X, Y, Z. That's a phenomenal time savings and efficiency gain that we didn't have.
Yeah, we're using it in all of our customer success conversations. It's phenomenal when you start tagging it and actually start understanding the patterns across hundreds of conversations. Really cool. All right, 2 minutes. I'm going to open it up. Any questions from the audience? Sure. All right.
I can't think of a better example right now, but do you think like Alexa is making consumers brand agnostic, right? We're talking about making inroads into consumer insights and upper funnel marketing and things, but where it all boils down to when you return home and Alexa reminds you to buy those coffee pods, and then are you really thinking of brand insights and loyalty and engagement, or are you just becoming agnostic?
I don't think so, personally. I think Amazon is a great flywheel of different conversion metrics. I think how brands use Amazon differs quite a lot. There's Amazon, the advertising agency, where you can go in and you can design different programmatic and search campaigns and video campaigns within Amazon. Through those, Amazon is able to read who saw, who viewed, who engaged with the content. But then Amazon is also a conversion channel. So if our clients advertise across the larger digital ecosystem, they could still go to Amazon to fulfill the order. So Amazon is a great way to get a read on who the customers are that are engaging with the products. Amazon Marketing Cloud is having a boom right now. Folks aren't, we're in AWS's headquarters here, so they might be listening. Maybe I'll get a free Alexa in the mail. Someone's listening from Amazon right now. But it's a great data set And the faster you mine that data for different trends, the more brands can take advantage of it. I don't think it's killing brand content at all, though. It's a great data set for brands to mine.
One more question here.
Perfect. You talked quite a bit about efficiencies in time and the ability to scale capabilities from an agency standpoint. I'm wondering how that translates into a standard agency revenue model that's based on hours, and if you're approaching what we can now do with AI and finding efficiencies in time and shifting to more of a value-based pricing or productization of the various services that you offer.
Oh my God, what a controversial question. I love it. Agencies do need to change the financial models quite a bit. I think manual tasks need to get reduced, and there's some efficiency that we can gain there. There's a lot of smart tasks that oftentimes are being ignored because we're stuck in billing reconciliation, actualization, filling out planning flow charts. All of that stuff can be done much, much faster with AI and automated tools. We do, as an industry, need to spend more time thinking about what matters. How do we challenge brands? How do we think about net new growth opportunities? How do we analyze new types of audience research and audience discovery? Yes, we definitely need to spend more time there, once again, as an industry, because there's a lot of big consulting companies that are owning some of that thought power that we should steal back. But hopefully not too many people here from consulting side. A little bit of a competitive rivalry there going on. But I think agency pricing models, outcome-based deals, 100%, value-based bidding, value-based deals, getting KPIs, even brand KPIs into how we work, how we're incentivized, absolutely. That should be part of the way that we go to market.
Are we at time? Do we have
time for one more question?
I think that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike and
Thank you, guys.
Armen.